Monterey Park Mayor Henry Lowe. Mayor Lowe, thank you for joining us. My condolences to you and your community.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for your condolences and for inviting us to your show.
Well, we really appreciate your being here. I want to start off by just asking you how your community is doing, how you all are holding up.
Thank you. Well, I think that right now in Monterey Park, our community, which is a very close-knit, tight community, there is just emotions that run the gamut from disbelief to shock to anger and sadness about why this happened in Monterey Park. Unfortunately, I think far too often when you read or hear about these instances, you think it only happens elsewhere. But now Monterey Park joins a list of 38 mass shooting events in the United States, and it's not even the end of January yet.
The numbers are just staggering and devastating, and I do want to ask you about the investigation. But first, I want to ask you about the lives lost, Mayor. Are there plans to honor the victims of this mass shooting?
Yes. Tonight, the city is holding a vigil at 5:30 p.m. In front of our city hall. We also have a memorial set up in City Hall for people to place flowers and candles. In addition, a memorial has been set up in front of the dance studio where the violent incident occurred. And members of the community have been also holding vigils as well. There also is a community GoFundMe site that has been set up. And people have just been so generous in wanting to make sure that we face this crisis tragedy not alone, but with the support of everyone in this country.
Yeah, well, I know that those community gatherings are going to be so important as you all grieve. I do want to ask you about the investigation. Can you give us the very latest that you are learning? And what more do you know about the suspect or any potential motive here?
Yes. The investigation continues, and unfortunately, we may never know fully what was the motive behind this. What I do understand, what I do know is that the gunman, he had a history of in the past going to his dance hall. Ballroom dancing is actually very popular in communities like ours in Monterey Park, and I also understand that he met his ex-wife there. But again, who knows what is the connection? Because this violent act happened during the Lunar New Year Eve, during the celebration, which our city just held its Lunar New Year festival ceremony kickoff earlier that day, and we just may never know what prompted him to commit such a violent and heinous act.
Governor Gavin Newsom said that the Second Amendment is becoming, quote, a suicide pact after Saturday night shooting. Do you agree with that characterization?
Already our community is just reeling from just this trauma that occurred. And I understand that, initially when the news broke about the shooting, I think many in our community was afraid, was this an act of anti-Asian violence? Because for the past 3 years, communities like Monterey Park have been just really on edge because of xenophobia and racism directed at Asian Americans. But as we're all trying to process what has occurred in our community, I was just saddened then to hear about what happened at the city of Half Moon Bay up in Northern California. And, my sympathies go to the city and that community because we know exactly what they're going through. But as the governor said, it's tragedy upon tragedy upon tragedy. And the question, when is this going to stop? As I said earlier, there are now 38 incidents of mass shooting in the United States. And that's more than the month of January.
Yeah, Mayor, to that point, let me just ask you a final question. California has some of the stiffest gun laws in the country. And yet, as you point out, the mass shooting in your area, the second mass shooting that you referenced, has happened in recent days. What more do you want to see Congress do? What more do you think lawmakers can do to prevent these types of tragedies?
Absolutely. Yes, California does have one of the strictest gun laws in the country. But one of the questions that we have as a community, besides what was the motive for the gunman, but also how did this gunman obtain what was an illegal firearm. And, it doesn't matter if the state has stringent firearm regulation, but this is a national conversation we need to be having. And yes, we do look to Congress to act because I can't even imagine, again, 38 mass shooting incidents already, and we're not even into February yet. I can't even fathom the idea of how many we will count at the end of this year.
It is an incredibly sobering and difficult thought. Again, our thoughts are with you and your community. Mayor Henry Lowe, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.